Join ninZaFamily. Download free indicators, settings, and chat live with pro traders. In trading, Breakout has therefore become extremely popular. It is simple, easy to understand, and creates the feeling that if you just wait for the right moment, the market will naturally present an opportunity. But let's pause for a moment and look at the example on this chart. Price is trading within a defined range with no clear directional trend. At this point, we cannot know in advance whether the market will break upward or downward. The only thing we know for sure is that only after price has moved can we look back and say, this was the breakout direction. And this is the reality of most breakout models. When the market is in a balanced state, the issue is not only the question, which direction will price break, but a more important one, how can we objectively identify balance areas as they are forming, so we can wait for valid breakout signals instead of simply reacting after price has already moved? Now, let's look at another situation, one that almost every trader has experienced. The breakout appears, but price does not move immediately. Instead, the market pulls back, retracing toward the area that was just broken, and only afterward does it begin to move strongly in the original breakout direction. This is a very common scenario, and it is also where many traders run into trouble. When a breakout has already occurred and price starts to pull back, the question is no longer, did a breakout happen, but a much more difficult one. Where will price retest? For these reasons, Flex TPO was created. Flex TPO does not try to introduce yet another breakout trading strategy. Instead, it focuses on addressing the core questions that traders consistently face. To achieve this, Flex TPO is built around three key components, each with a very specific role. The first component is initial balance. Flex TPO uses initial balance to identify the market's initial balance area in a completely new way. Rather than drawing ranges subjectively from swing highs or swing lows, it defines balance based on meaningful, structured time cycles. This allows you to recognize when the market is still undecided and when it begins to transition into a different state. The second component is the TPO chart, used within the initial balance to identify the POC, the price level most accepted by the market during the balance phase. The POC acts as a value axis, a price level the market often returns to test after a breakout occurs. The third component consists of two core signals, break and retest. Flex TPO only confirms a break when price closes outside the initial balance, helping filter noise and avoid false breakouts. After that, Flex TPO monitors and identifies a retest at the POC, a critical level for observing market response, rather than chasing price at the moment of the breakout. When these three components work together, Flex TPO does not attempt to predict where the market will go. Instead, it helps you understand when the market is ready to move, where the breakout is occurring from, and which price level matters most if the market pulls back. In Flex TPO, continuous is the mode in which the indicator creates initial balance continuously and sequentially. When one period ends, a new period begins immediately, without skipping any time. For example, you choose. Period is 60 bars. Us initial balance is the first 10 bars. This means that each set of 60 bars is treated as an independent period. Within the first 10 bars of that period, Flex TPO takes the highest high and the lowest low to form the initial balance for that period. After the initial balance is established, the remaining 50 bars in the period are used to monitor price behavior relative to that initial balance. When all 60 bars are completed, the period ends. Flex TPO then resets and begins a new period, again using the first 10 bars of the new period to create a new initial balance, and this process continues repeatedly. There are three main colors: blue, yellow, and pink, and the color of the current initial balance is determined by its position relative to the previous initial balance. The color of the initial balance is not decorative, but is used to represent the market's position and state relative to the previous segment. 1. Yellow initial balance, repeating balance. When the current initial balance overlaps with the range of the previous initial balance, Flex TPO colors it yellow. This indicates that the market has not created a new structural shift. Buyers and sellers continue to compete, and the market has not produced a clear directional signal. In other words, the market remains in a balanced state. 2. Blue initial balance, upward shift. When the current initial balance sits entirely above the range of the previous initial balance, Flex TPO colors it blue. This indicates that the market has shifted its balance area higher, a sign that value is being accepted at higher prices compared to the previous segment. A blue initial balance reflects a structural shift to the upside and serves as an early indication that the market may be transitioning into a stronger state. Pink initial balance, downward shift. Conversely, when the current initial balance sits entirely below the range of the previous initial balance, Flex TPO colors it pink. This indicates that the balance area has shifted lower, with the market beginning to accept value at lower prices than before. A pink initial balance reflects a structural shift to the downside and shows that selling pressure is dominating the new segment. Mode 2. Volume trigger is designed for traders who want the market to trigger its own structure rather than relying on a fixed time period. Unlike the continuous mode, where the initial balance is formed based on fixed periods and repeats in a cycle, volume trigger doesn't rely on time. Instead, the initial balance is only formed when the volume condition is met. In other words, Mode 2 lets the market decide when a new balance zone should be established, based on actual market participation. In this mode, Flex TPO will group N candles into a block and selects the one with the highest volume to define the initial balance. To make this easier to visualize, let's look at the following example. I've set block size 03 candles. The current candle and the two previous candles are grouped into a block. Let's assume the current block's total volume equals $300. The previous block's total volume equals 200. The next block's volume equals 280. And the block before that has a volume of 170. In this case, the current block has the highest volume compared to all previous blocks. Therefore, the three candles in this block will be used to define the initial balance. Volume trigger doesn't operate on fixed period. An important question arises. When does an initial balance end, and when does a new one begin? The answer lies in volume. After a block qualifies and the initial balance is formed, Flex TPO continues to monitor the following blocks. If the next candle creates a new block with the highest total volume, Flex TPO doesn't immediately reset the initial balance because the previous one is still in play. This continuation lasts until a new block no longer has the highest volume, or the comparison condition is no longer met. At this point, Flex TPO resumes monitoring until a new block with the highest total volume appears, and a new initial balance is formed. Since volume trigger is based on the volume condition of each block, rather than on fixed time periods, initial balances in this mode may overlap the range of the previous initial balance. A TPO chart is a series of letters organized based on price movement during each candle. It helps Flex TPO identify where the market spent the most time trading, or, in other words, which price levels were most accepted by the market. This price level is called the POC, point of control. Note that the POC here isn't the area with the highest volume, but rather the area where the market stayed the longest. The number of letters appearing in the TPO chart depends on how many candles are used to form the initial balance. For example, if the initial balance is formed from 3 candles, then the TPO chart will have 3 corresponding letters, like A, B, and C. Each candle corresponds to a unique letter. The process of forming a letter starts as soon as a candle begins to form. When the first tick of the candle appears, Flex TPO will draw the first letter on the left. The height of each letter is customizable by the user. As the price moves upwards and surpasses the height of the first letter, Flex TPO will draw the second letter and continue if the price expands further. If the price turns back and reaches a previously drawn letter, Flex TPO won't redraw it. This ensures consistency and prevents duplication in the TPO chart. When the first candle closes, the letter drawing process for that candle ends. As soon as the second candle begins, Flex TPO will draw the next letter to the left. If a letter already exists at that price level, the new letter will be placed right next to the old one. So, you'll see the letters stacking horizontally, and the TPO chart will become thicker in areas where the market traded multiple times. As the process continues until all candles in the initial balance are completed, the price levels with the most letters will become the thickest areas on the TPO chart, and these are the POC. When the initial balance starts to form, Flex TPO simultaneously begins to draw the TPO chart. The TPO chart will be built directly within the initial balance range and only exists for the duration of the initial balance phase. When the initial balance is complete, the TPO chart for that phase stops. During this process, the letters accumulate with each candle, reflecting how much time the market spent at each price level. Once the initial balance is finished, we can identify the POC of that initial balance. It's the price level most accepted by both buyers and sellers during that time. As explained earlier, the color of the initial balance reflects its position relative to the previous initial balance. When a new initial balance is fully above or below the previous one, Flex TPO identifies this as a clear market shift. At that point, Flex TPO automatically displays the entire TPO chart from the previous period. This gives traders a full view of how the market distributed time during the prior period. At the same time, Flex TPO identifies the price level most accepted during the entire previous period, also known as the full period POC. So, what does Flex TPO use these factors for? We'll clarify their role in the next section. Once the initial balance is completed and the balance zone is clearly defined, Flex TPO starts looking for a break signal. The break signal occurs when a candle closes outside the initial balance range. This indicates that price didn't just touch the boundary. It actually closed beyond the balance zone previously established. From this point, Flex TPO monitors the market's next behavior based on the identified structure. The retest signal appears after a break signal has occurred. When an initial balance is formed and a breakout signal appears from that initial balance, Flex TPO begins to monitor for the potential of a retest. At this point, there are two main scenarios that could unfold. Scenario 1. Price moves strongly in the breakout direction and never returns to the broken zone. In this case, no retest signal is formed. Scenario 2. After the break, price doesn't continue immediately but returns. In this case, the POC of the initial balance becomes the price level the market is likely to revisit. If the price returns to the POC and meets the necessary conditions, Flex TPO will generate a retest signal. In other words, instead of retesting randomly at any price level, Flex TPO focuses on the price level most accepted by the market during the previous balance period. Additionally, retest signals can also occur in the case of an initial balance gap. When a new initial balance forms entirely above or below the previous one, Flex TPO will identify the full period POC of the prior period. If price then returns to this full period POC zone and meets the conditions, Flex TPO will generate a retest signal based on the full period POC. Starting with Mode 1, Continuous, there are two key parameters we need to focus on: initial balance, bars, and period, bars. Initial balance is the parameter used to define the number of candles to determine the initial balance, and period is the number of candles used to define the length of a cycle. The larger these parameters, the fewer signals you get. On the other hand, the smaller these parameters are, the more signals you get. For Mode 2, Volume Trigger, the initial balance bars parameter is the most important. Similar to Mode 1, when this parameter is smaller, more signals will appear. And when the parameter is larger, fewer signals will be formed. Join the ninZaFamily forum to stay connected, ask questions, and explore ideas with our team and other traders. There's a lot more waiting for you inside. Links in the description. Thanks for watching until the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell icon so you don't miss our latest content.